Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together, our weekly Zoom meeting number 29 with Emily Saich. So, as always, we're going to begin with a practice. We're going to do a practice that's one of my favorites, and if you are regular on the Zoom meetings, you may know it pretty well at this point. So it's called the soles of the feet. And the reason I love it so much is it's good for parents, it's good for kids of all ages and all places on the developmental spectrum. So, and maybe you'll see how that plays out as we dive into today's meeting. But first, let's do this check-in. So you could close your eyes if you'd like, or not. And please, if you're driving or walking or something, don't close your eyes. And then checking into how it is in your body. Just noticing what it's like in the muscles right now. Are there places that are tight? Are there places that are softer? So it doesn't have to be any particular way. There's no right answer to any question that I ask. And then maybe noticing your breathing. So is it deeper? Is it shallower? Is it faster? Is it slower? Just so you know how that is. And then you could bring your attention to that place where thinking happens, wherever that is. And maybe you could notice how thinking is. So not what you're thinking about, but the quality of it. And so I kind of like using the weather as a way of talking about how the mind is. So maybe it's clear and sunny. Maybe it's cloudy or foggy. Maybe there's a storm brewing. Maybe it's all just spinning around, like maybe not a tornado yet, but getting there. So everything is fine. We're just looking to see how it is right now. And then you could look at emotion. Maybe there's a mood that's been with you for a while. And you could say the name of the emotion quietly to yourself. Maybe it's an emotion that's just shown up right now as we've started to pay this kind of attention. So you could see if it has a name and maybe say that to yourself. And then you could bring your attention to the soles of your feet. It doesn't matter where your feet are. They might be flat on the floor. They might be propped up somewhere. Just feeling the soles of your feet. Maybe there's pressure on them. Maybe they're just barely touching the insole of your shoe or touching your socks, or maybe the air. So just noticing in detail the soles of your feet. So feeling how it is at your heels and in the arches and across the balls of your feet. maybe across the toes. So you might even want to wiggle your toes a little bit to tell them apart. Just greeting each individual one. Coming back and feeling the whole of the soles of your feet. And maybe now the sides of your feet as well. The tops of your feet. Just noticing how it is. And then bringing your attention up through your body. Getting in touch. Maybe noticing how the muscles are. Noticing that tightness or softness. Noticing your breathing and how that's going. And bringing attention now to that place where thought happens. Be noticing the weather of the mind. How is it right now? Maybe it's the same as before. Maybe it's different than before. Just noticing. And then checking into your emotion. What's there for you right now? What's its name? And so at this point, you have checked in into how it is for you right now. So now you know. And if I asked you, you could tell me. So when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you could open them. And I could ask you this question, Emily, since we're recording this just a few hours before it's going to be streamed. So how are you? What did you find?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking. I thought that was very meditative. And one of the things that you mentioned before we got started is that that was it's such a useful practice because of how many people it can help, and that there really are no limitations to participating in that practice. And I thought that was absolutely true. And
Mm,
personally, I noticed that as you walked through each one of those steps, I noticed a change in my breathing, and I noticed how that can impact my mood and my emotional regulation. And I think that's a wonderful skill that a lot of people could practice.
yeah, yeah. And that's what we're hoping for. So,
Certainly worked for
everyone,
me.
everyone, this is Emily Saich that we're talking with. She is the director of ASERT, ASERT, ASERT's Central Region here in Pennsylvania. And I'm going to ask Emily to tell us a little bit about ASERT.
Sure. Thank you, and thank you again for having me on your on this episode. I'm happy to be here. ASERT stands for Autism Services, Education, Resources, and Training. We are a grant program throughout the state of Pennsylvania. We are funded through the Office of Developmental Programs. We've been around for a little over 15 years now, and we really focus on bringing resources, training, educational opportunities, just countless resources to individuals with autism in Pennsylvania, as well as their parents and caregivers, professionals in the community, medical providers, and anyone really who interacts with individuals with autism. And that's a lot of people. So we really take this work very seriously. And we're really happy to be here covering topics. We help cover topics from social skill development, covering Medicaid waivers, medical procedures, and everything in between. So, really happy to be here and share information about our resources.
Wow. Yeah, and the resources really go deep. I mean, the conversations that we've had, I was astonished at how much you guys have accomplished in in the
Well,
time,
thank you.
15 years. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, so learning life skills together is this program that really touches everyone that you named there, we hope, right? So parents and carers, as we call them, and we would love to have professionals understanding the value of this program and recommending it, and maybe, frankly, even learning some of these little skills like
Yeah.
the soles of the feet, you know? Um, so how does assert sort of reach to those different audiences? So let's start with, the parents and
Sure,
care.
sure. That's an excellent question. So one of our biggest, or two, we have two primary ways of disseminating our resources. We have over 1,000 resources. They can all be found on our website, paautism.org. We do have three different websites, but anything that you would search for across the three websites, they all can be found on paautism.org. They all link back there. So no need to feel like you're going searching. But we also encourage parents in particular to follow us on social media. We have a presence on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and recently on Discord also. To be able to follow us, see what our new resources are. That's a really fantastic way to know what we have available. But I would also encourage anyone to sign up for our newsletter. That's another really great way to get our resources. That goes out monthly. We also attend a number of events in the community. And that's a great way if you're interested in a particular topic, if there's a particular event that's going on, we can bring resources specific to that to help answer questions.
So I'm wondering if there's a sort of starter resource that you would think that every parent should investigate of that ASERT has.
Sure. So the one thing that we always like to say or really emphasize is the breadth that someone with autism may experience, the breadth of experiences that they're going to have, really showcasing that range. And that's something that we've been really focusing on lately. But I think one of the most popular resources that we have that people have found very, very helpful is our communication resource collection. So we have a number of resources on communication, and we have resources for self-advocates on how to identify their emotions, how to articulate their emotions. But we also have a number of resources for parents specifically on how to coach someone through identifying those emotions, making sure those emotions don't take over before they're able to process. Being able to explain, okay, I'm having this emotion, this is what the action might be. So I would think that the communication resources are a really excellent place to start because they can really be applied to so many different people with different skill sets, different levels of need, and you can really choose what specifically would work best for the person that you're supporting, and use those strategies and tools to help in so many different ways. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned with the mindfulness practice, there's so many different ways that being able to be in tune with those things can help. Similarly with communication, if you're able to get work on those skills, that can help in so many different ways.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing is this parallel with learning life skills together, where sort of our fourth of the four skills is effective communication.
Yes.
And, we tend to think of it as, the person that we're caring for or our kids or whatever. But what about us? This is what,
Yes.
sort of 50% of this of communication is, right? Is knowing how you are in the moment and maybe even being a little prepared
Exactly.
to dive into the other person's experience. And so we really need to be in balance.
Exactly. Yes. And we try to do that also, like you said, just the way your program learning life skills together as you try to address those multiple audiences, it really is important for not only giving those skills to self-advocates to help them build skills, help them advocate for themselves in whatever way they can,
Yeah.
but also being able to educate those that support them, the carers, the group that you've identified, being able to give those skills to those individuals also, it can be very beneficial.
Yeah. So, wow. Um, let's talk about self-advocates because that's not a group that we have specifically addressed. And so I'm wondering how learning these four skills of paying attention to what is around us and how that affects us. Because a lot of us are very good at paying attention to what's around us. We can see all kinds of detail. We can look deeply into things, and we sort of leave out the fact that, well, what's happening with me as I'm doing this? How am I feeling? So we're trying to get people to do that, sort of looking back inside. So attention is one. The next one is being in balance, being emotionally regulated. And then the next one is the one that everybody needs help with, which is tolerating distress, getting through times when I'm out of balance, things are not working for me, and they're not going to for a little while. And so, how do I cope with that? And then the final one, of course, is, if you have all those things going for you, then you can probably say what you need, which is
Sure.
effective communication, right?
Sure.
Ultimately. So I'm wondering if you could sort of comment on those from a self-advocate's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'd like to just call out a few things about autism. The latest numbers of autism rates in this country are 1 in 36 people. So,
Wow.
autism really does impact a profound number of people in this country. And they do all have varied experiences. And it is not an intellectual disability. It is not a mental illness. It is a complex neurological condition. And some people with autism may have co-occurring conditions, but it's just something to keep in mind. So as you're thinking of self-advocates in the community, it is lifelong. It is something that they will face their whole lives. There's no cure, but being able to develop these skills can really make an impact in their daily life. So I think one of the things that you talked about first was attention. And I think being able to help self-advocates identify the world around them, it is exactly what you're talking about. And we do that a number of different ways. One of our most popular formats of a resource, so covering a variety of different topics, but the format in which the information presented is called a social story. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Oh,
those.
yes. Oh, yes.
Yes, they're the images, they're pictures, stories that really explain step by step with visuals and short statements what someone can expect. So we have a number of different social stories that can walk self-advocates through a number of different topics, but we also really focus on the sights and sounds. And I think that that's one way that you could really, a self-advocate could approach this attention topic, being able to prescriptively identify what is it that you are looking at, what is it that you are hearing, and being able to help them develop those skills to do it on their own. Having those resources. What is it that you are seeing? What is it that you are hearing? What is it that you are smelling? What is it in front of you that you are able to touch? Providing examples, giving options.
Mm,
That's one way that you can really help a self-advocate succeed. And giving them those tools to do it on their
yeah.
own,
Yeah.
giving them the options, showing them what they can do in their environment. Being more concrete, that's something that's really going to help a self-advocate. So not just saying, what do you feel, but you're sitting down at your desk. What can you touch on your desk? Can you feel your computer keys? Can you feel the
Mm,
chair that you're sitting on?
yeah.
And helping them with more concrete steps that they can take and then practice in their own life. And one thing that we often recommend for self advocates is after you've done a particular exercise, what worked well for you and what didn't, so you can
Ah,
prepare for next time. Was you were really able to see things around you, but perhaps you were in a really loud environment and you couldn't identify your sounds. Maybe next time you want to approach it a little differently and listen for something in particular.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so
So so that's the attention piece.
mhm.
So could we just go through real fast
Yeah, yeah,
the other
sure.
three?
So,
So
and I think
okay.
the next one was the emotional regulation, I believe,
Right.
that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And we have a number of really helpful resources on that. We actually developed a number of the of emotional regulation resources during the COVID-19 pandemic, when we were all very much
Yes,
in
we
need
all needed them, that's for
of some
sure.
emotional regulation. And we break those down. One of our key resources, and it's specifically called, and I can share all of these links with your listeners, but processing emotions and relaxation techniques. And that specifically talks about three things: building an emotional vocabulary, coping strategies, and mindfulness and relaxation. And that walks through step by step the emotional regulation pieces. Again, it uses the visuals and the social stories, and it talks about explaining to self advocates what they are feeling and how that can impact their behavior and what they can do to change those things. So, as you're able to identify your emotions, what behavior is going to happen because of those emotions, and what impact are you going to allow that to have? It also walks through some very specific coping strategies that an individual with autism could put into place. There's deep breathing, there's finding helpful distractions that are in your environment. And there's also something that's very important in every step of the way for anyone, with someone with autism or not, recognizing when you need to give yourself a break. Is this not working? Do you need to take some time to regather your thoughts? So those are some of the coping strategies they recommend. And some of the mindfulness strategies were very similar to what we walked through with your exercise. How do you feel? What are you seeing? What are those senses? Being Thinking with your thoughts, the progressive muscle relaxation techniques. There's some of those that are provided
Yes.
in that resource also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Those
so
are
that's the one thing in particular I think we have that's very helpful for emotional regulation.
yeah. And so everyone's project is distress tolerance, is getting through
Yes.
tough times, right? That's something that we all share and we all could be better.
Yes. Yeah, always a work in progress, always something that we can improve upon. And we actually have a project that, one of our very recent projects that we've put together, something that has been very successful. It's called Project Reassure. And Project Reassure, like many of our resources, is broken down and has formats for different audiences. But our very first Project Reassure launch was specifically designed for self advocates, and that talked
Mm,
about resilience and trauma. And that was really broken into helping individuals with autism understand trauma and then understand resilience and what it means to have gone through something traumatic, and then what it means to be able to be resilient and to take lessons from that and move on from that, and being able to build the skills to do that. So that starts with understanding trauma, understanding resilience, understanding what resilience skills are and what your specific skills are to practice resilience, and then making those choices to be resilient and to use those skills. You have the skills, but you also have to be able to choose to use them when you find yourself in that type of a situation.
mm,
And some of those resilient skills are tracking, resourcing, grounding, gesturing, shift and stay, and help and now. And I can talk briefly about what those would be and how self advocates can use those skills. Um, Tracking is something very similar to what we've talked about. It's paying attention to what's happening around you,
mhm,
tracking your environment. What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? There's also resourcing, and that's using people, places, things that can change your mood. So that, and for a self
mm,
advocate, again, trying to help make it a more prescriptive process, are you going to look at a picture of something that makes you happy? being able to provide those clear steps for self-advocate. So looking at a picture, that's a very clear step that someone could take. Is it listening to a song that you really like? Again, something very prescriptive that someone can do to help be resilient and help move into what we refer to as widening your okay zone. You have your okay zone of where you are, and you have these skills to help you stay in that okay zone and that feeling of okay, and can over time help you build and widen that okay zone. The next thing that we talked about was grounding. Again, very similar, focusing on what's happening now. So not necessarily the senses, but what is happening right now? What can I control?
Mm,
What is in my control?
yeah, good question.
Gesturing, sort of what it sounds like, movement. Is there a physical movement that you can do? And this doesn't have to be going for a walk. This could be moving your hands. This could be stretching your neck back and forth. This could be wiggling your feet. It can be anything for anyone. Um, that's that gesturing piece. Shift and stay really speaks to the okay zone, and that speaks to making those changes, but still being able to stay in the okay zone. And lastly, help now. When do you need help? When
Mm,
are you at a place where perhaps these strategies maybe aren't working, or maybe you need to take some type of extra effort? Do you need to take a cold drink of water? Do you need to do something physical? Do you need to focus on another step? But making sure that self-advocates know that it might not always work the first time, and there are still other things you can do.
yeah, yeah. That's really nice. That's an exhaustive list of things that you
Yes,
can
it
do.
is. It is. And
And
again, on
yeah,
our website, certainly, no one needs to scratch down
no.
notes really quickly.
And and again, there's a huge overlap with what we're putting out there as well. I mean, you said looking at a picture,
Mhm.
listening to a piece of music, all those kinds of things sort of, are filtered in and through what we're doing to kind of make the learning of these things a pleasant thing and not a chore, right? Because
Absolutely.
sometimes you can feel like, you can work on yourself, and sometimes it feels like you're a sculptor and you're actually,
Yes.
hammering away at yourself. And it's really much better if it's smooth and cool and can include, some of the time, some things that you really like. Yeah, I,
Right.
I love
And I
that.
And I think one of the things too that we really focus on, particularly with Project Reassure, is sort of like, and you've touched on this, is making sure that individuals have the skills moving forward. So with this resource collection with Project Reassure, we also have the resilience social stories. So again, the visual demonstrations of that. We also have templates that someone can use. So if you want to build your own resilience plan, and this is something that you're prepared to do, we have blank templates on our website that self-advocates can use to build their own resilience plan. So like
Mm.
you said, this is going to be recurring. This is something we're always going to be working on. There's always going to be times where you're going to need to practice these skills. So we do also try to offer that proactive next step.
Yeah, yeah. And so the final one of the four is that effective communication, which you sort of talked about right at the start here. uh,
Mhm.
Communication piece.
Yes, we have. So we have countless resources on our website focused on communication, as I'm sure
Yeah,
you can imagine.
it's
But
important.
yes, there are. We have things as from like the social end, conversation starters, how-to guides, how to connect with others. But I think for this particular focus, we have a resource that we created recently, and it was for self-advocates. A self-advocate actually collaborated with us to help us develop this resource. As we often bring self-advocates in
Yeah.
to contribute to content or edit, but this is something that a self-advocate who collaborates with our team frequently was particularly interested in focusing on, and they worked with a clinician who, again, helps with ASERT. And it's a four communication styles resource. And this talks about being passive, passive
Right.
aggressive, aggressive, or assertive. And it provides those different communication options and what can happen based on those communication styles that you may choose, what may not go well if you choose a particular style, or what may be more successful for you, and gives you different options in different scenarios. And it helps to explain those different communication styles and then can help a self advocate articulate those
Yeah.
in their own life.
Yeah. Cool. So, how about now? So we've done self-advocates. How about parents and carers? I mean, what's there for those skills for themselves, maybe? Or they could come to our place.
Sure, sure.
For those as well. So I'm just interested because you all have been involved in this for so long, and we're really a startup, and so it's great to hear what other people have worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we do the same. We have a number. We have over 1,000 resources on our website. A large majority of those are ASERT created, but we also absolutely leverage other places. I mean, there are really great resources out there from wonderful advocacy organizations across the country and across the globe. So I mean, certainly look for what works best for you and your family. But we have a number of resources. Just jumping back to that attention piece from the beginning, we have resources that for parents and carers, I think they can use these skills to teach themselves what to do. But then there's also different strategies towards teaching a self advocate. So, for example, if you want someone to take a deep breath, and that may be something that they're struggling with, providing that visualization or a specific concrete option, something like pretend you're blowing into a balloon. Take a deep breath and blow into a balloon. That is something that physically someone can do, that it's much easier to visualize that than take a
Hmm.
deep breath, and
Right.
being able to give that concrete example of what to do in order to practice a skill. So those are some of the things that we focus on for that. Can be a parent, it could be a sibling who's supportive. You've mentioned teachers. There's a number of people in the community who interact closely with individuals with autism. And those are some things and strategies that we recommend to help someone who may be struggling to execute a concept.
Yeah, this is really, really helpful. What we're doing is we're saying to the parents and carers, you're successful adults. You have these skills. So can you, one, model them,
Mhm,
and two, and we'll come back to that in a minute, and two, share them.
mhm.
So in the sharing of them with people on the autism spectrum, you know, what you're talking about, that resource, that making things more concrete, that making them visual, that kind of thing is really, really important for them to understand, because it's not something that we go deeply into at this point in our development.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to really flag that one up for everyone who's listening. Is that that's as you're trying to share, ooh, let's go check this out and see what the sort of recommended sharing way is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and that's something that can be applied in a strategy that can be applied in so many different scenarios. Where even when we're looking at working with healthcare providers or
Ah,
law enforcement, are you able to
totally.
provide a visual before you do something? Are you able to show a picture of what is going to happen? If you're looking at the parent or care, can you take a picture of the doctor's office of where you're going before you go, and help prepare that person so they're not
Yeah.
surprised?
Yeah.
Are you able to show them a picture of a blood pressure cuff or a thermometer? If they're going to a new school, can you get a picture of their new classroom? Can you give that visual ahead of time and provide some of those examples for that person?
Yeah. That's terrific. Thank you on that.
Yeah, of course.
So, so did we cover everything? I think we did.
I
The
think
of
so.
the four skills. Now we have just a few minutes left, really. But we have this other piece to what we do, which is to say, let's live and learn these skills in situations or contexts or whatever you want to call them that are also supportive of our physical and mental health, right? So we say the first one, and this we sort of tied to attention because it seems obvious, is going for a walk, getting out and moving through the world, however you need to do that. I mean, I'm not saying that it's that you can't go on your wheelchair or however you need to get through
Sure,
the world,
absolutely.
but to get out there
Yes.
is the key, and so we're really sort of encouraging folks to get out of the house, which accomplishes two things, for us. One is that we get that physical activity as much or as little as we can, and we know that any amount of extra physical activity is good for us. You know,
Yes.
it's the old, oh, well, you have to take 10,000 steps, and I can't, I can't possibly do that today, so I won't try. It's like walk out for 5 minutes, walk back for
Yes.
5 minutes, and get back to work. That's
Yes.
fine. That does it. So we have that physical health part, which is naturally part of our mental health. When we feel better, we do better, right? And then we have the other part that our brain works differently, our mind works differently when we engage our body that way. I mean, throughout human history, this has been true. The great philosophers of, 2,500 years ago walked and talked. They didn't sit and talk. They walked and talked. So we know that that's good for us, is all I want to say on that one. So getting out, moving through the world. I'll just lay these four out. And the next one is experiencing awe and beauty. And that's the one that struck me when you said, well, you could look at a picture. You could listen to a piece of music. This is really a way that we improve our health physically, again, physically and mentally. We have an evidence base for this. Awe in nature just really changes us like that. To go outside and look at the beautiful puffy clouds that we've been having recently, you know, it's-
Mm.
and our brain chemistry is changing. Our whole body chemistry is changing just in 10 minutes or so of doing something like that. So, and that of course plays into, well, we're doing the same thing when we're looking at a painting. We're doing the same thing when we're hearing music. All of those ways that we express awe and beauty, and awe and beauty as it naturally occurs, are really good for us. And we want people to put themselves in in a place where that can happen, right? And then the next one is making things. So having a sense of agency, having a sense of, I accomplished that, I did that, I made this.
Right,
It's
right.
really stunningly important for us. And again, science basis on it. And the last one is belonging. And I know that that's sometimes harder, for families with, kids with all kinds of differences, that finding a place to belong is tough. And so that's probably the one I'd like you to start with because
Yeah.
it's so good for us. If you want the science, man,
Yes. Yes.
belonging somewhere is just it's off the charts for what it does to your physical and mental health.
Yes, no, and I'm glad you brought that up. That is something that it's one of our, it is a part of our website, even beyond just a print resource that someone can have. But we have a support group map on our website.
Mm,
It is a statewide support group map. It is broken down by county, and you can click on your county and you can find all of the different support groups that are available in your state. And that is something that is hugely popular for people who visit our website. It is in a fantastic way to do exactly what you were recommending and finding that place where you belong, having those choices of what group is for you, what group is going to provide you with what you need to grow, and what group is going to have the stakeholders that you're looking for. Are you looking for a group of self advocates? Are you looking for a special interest group? And that's a really excellent place to start. It will give you those groups right there. But we also have resources on our website of how to use a support group, how to find a support group in a different way. We have social events and meeting people resource collections. So
mm,
you want to have this sense of belonging. You see that there are these social groups available, but you're not sure what to do. You're not sure about how to approach that group. You're new. There might be some anxieties around that. That's completely understandable. We have resources on our website that can help self advocates build those skills and be prepared and be a little bit more, hopefully, comfortable in joining that support group if that's what they're looking for. So we really try to approach it from both ends. We want to give you the skills to be successful, but we also want to show you where to go because it is
yeah.
so, so important to be able to, like you said, find that sense of belonging. I would also encourage anyone to follow us on our social media because we try to connect with other organizations, show who else is out in the community. There might be a special interest group that you like. On our subsidiary website, asdnext.org, which is accessible through paautism.org, we have a community page. It's something that we just launched in April, and we have a Discord channel, a Discord server on that with a number of different channels for self advocates to discuss art, music, movies, things that interest them, pets channel. And it's another really great way for individuals to connect virtually if perhaps travel is a barrier for you. So we really try to give a number of different options there for exactly like you said, finding that sense of belonging, finding that sense of community.
Yeah. That's wonderful and a really, I think, wonderful note for us to maybe close on.
Sure.
And Emily, this has been just so filled with information. I want everybody to know that we're going to put as many links as you as you can
Of
send me in the show notes for this and in our
course.
resources section of our website. And I'd love to bring you or someone else from ASERT back to talk more because
Yes.
we haven't looked at being outside, getting exercise, making things. We haven't looked at all of that, and I think it would be good to dive into those topics as well.
Yes,
So,
we'd be happy to.
yeah. So thank you so much, and everybody. Don't forget to look at the show notes of this one.
And I can also provide you with ASERT's resource center information. That is a phone number and email address that is operated in both English and Spanish. If anyone is looking for anything in particular, any niche resource, you can reach out at any time, and someone from our team can get back to you. and try to help provide any guidance that we can.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.